Hey, what's up, YouTube fans? So, what I wanted to talk about in this video, right, is a common reason for why someone could get the false impression that a certain biological system is irreducibly complex when it isn't actually, right? So, irreducible complexity is a concept promoted by intelligent design advocates where they will try to say that certain biological systems or biological structures cannot be explained by evolutionary processes alone, such as mutation and natural selection. And their basis for that will be along the lines of that they will say that it doesn't work unless it has all of the parts in it at once, right? Or at least most of the parts in it at once, according to them. And so therefore, they claim that you couldn't have a step-by-step evolutionary process giving rise to the biological system or biological structure because none of the intermediate steps to them would in their own right be useful. According to them, you have to have all the pieces together at once or else it has no use at all. And so therefore, if it's too complex to come about in a single mutation, then that would mean then that evolutionary processes cannot explain it, right? And but there are many examples where they will claim that something is irreducibly complex, right? But then it's demonstrated that it actually isn't, right? And a common reason for why they would have the impression that something is irreducibly complex when it isn't actually, right, is because they will notice that it's, essential for functioning in the human body, right? And like something that we can't live without. And so therefore they will think that proves that it's irreducibly complex, right? So like in the human body, right, there are many vital organs, meaning that we can't survive without them. It's not just that it helps us to survive, but we literally can't survive without them, right? Organs like heart, brain, liver, pancreas, the list will go on and on. There's many vital organs in the human body, right? Not to mention that, without our reproductive organs, we couldn't reproduce, right? And so they will, based on that, oftentimes claim that proves that that's proof of irreducible complexity, because they'll say things like, humans can't survive without hearts. So how could there ever have been a time when our ancestors didn't have hearts? The hearts have to have existed from the start in our ancestry, and therefore they couldn't have come about evolutionarily. But see, this is what they're missing when they're having that line of thinking, right? Is that if humans did evolve from earlier creatures that had very different bodies from what we have now, which were much simpler, which is exactly what evolutionary theory predicts is the case, right? Then that would mean that the fact that something is necessary for human survival now does not necessarily mean that it had to have always been necessary for our ancestors from the beginning, right? Because if we can show that there are other creatures that can survive without these organs, they can survive and reproduce without them, right? Then if our ancestors originally had bodies more set up, more so analogous to those other creatures, right? Then they could survive and reproduce without these organs, right? And then the organs, but then that would not mean that there could never be any advantage to evolving the organs, right? Because for creatures that are capable of surviving without a heart, for example, the fact that they're capable of surviving without a heart doesn't mean that, you know, they couldn't potentially that they couldn't potentially get advantage from having a heart, because, you know, having like a basic heart in the simplest form, right? That could still potentially make them have higher chances than other organisms within the population of surviving and reproducing. And that's all that's necessary for a trait to be successful evolutionarily, right? And so therefore you can't get hung up on like, oh, humans can't survive without, you know, hearts and without a heart and lungs and brain and liver, kidney, all these various organs, because, you know, for example, jellyfish, they have none of those organs, right? And yet they still can survive and reproduce, right? So those organs are not, even though they're necessary for humans being able to survive and reproduce, right? They are not necessary for any type of organism to be able to survive and reproduce, right? And so if humans did evolve from creatures that had very different bodies from what we have now, then it's not a problem to explain then how our ancestors could have originally survived without these various organs, right? And, you know, that's exactly what evolutionary theory predicts, right? Because evolutionary theory predicts that humans share common ancestry with all life on Earth, right? So that that hundreds of millions of years ago, we trace back to a common ancestor with jellyfish, right? Jellyfish, evolutionary theory predicts that we are related to jellyfish, that we share common ancestry with them, right? And that all of the structure of our body, at least on the multicellular level, reduces down to evolutionary processes. That's what evolutionary theory predicts, right? And so if evolutionary theory is indeed true, then that would mean that whether or not a organ or, you know, biological system, what have you, the fact that it's necessary for human survival and or reproduction doesn't mean that it had to have always been for our ancestors from the start, right? And so you can have our ancestors originally having a different setup where they didn't need these organs. Then they evolved these organs, first not needing them, but just getting advantage from them, right? And then eventually, once they already have the organs, that allows for them then to evolve other features which make them have dependency on the organs, right? So the dependency on the organs can come later after the organs are already evolved, right? So that's all for now. See you guys.